Welcome to episode 4 of the Winning Wealth Podcast. On this episode, we talked about what you need to know to do your first deal. We broke it down into 6 steps. Let's get into it.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about what you need to know to do your first deal. And this is for any listeners that, and we're talking real estate because of our background. You can apply this 6-step process to doing all sorts of different deals. But for the sake of this show, we're going to be talking about how to do your first real estate deal and what you need to know. And we've outlined a 6-step process to make it succinct and really get you over the hump and get that first deal done. And then, as you've said before, it's like the domino effect, right? You get a deal done. Exactly. Law of the first deal. I don't know who coined that one, but I like it.
It's great. Yeah.
And it works. It really works. So let's get into it. Step 1, we said, was define the path. And what that means is, trying to figure out exactly in real estate, there's so many different paths that you can do. You can make a lot of money and build wealth in real estate, whether you have a flipping business or whether you, or whether you're doing bigger commercial deals, you want to get into development, or you want to buy value add multifamily. You've got to, and I tell people to go broad first. Learn as much as they can about how real estate works in general, how finance works in general, how business works in general, and then from there niche down into what you think is going to be the most complementary towards your skill set, and honestly what you're most interested in. Because if you're interested in it, you're spending the additional time, even subconscious. You might be dreaming. I dream about it a lot of times. I really do.
Well, like you're saying, I think when you start with, all right, so you want to get into real estate, right? It's a broad industry, but so you got to start with learning about what real estate is, right? The basics, because a lot of the basics apply to anything in real estate. But then after that, there's so many different ways you can go. You can go flipping, wholesaling, commercial, buying duplexes. There's just so many different paths to go. So I agree. I think it's you start with first, okay, we want to get into real estate. Let's learn some of the basics. And then from there, niche down into saying, okay, I'm going down wanting to buy commercial. My path is to buy 2 to 4 unit residential properties.
Yep.
And you really just niche down from there. So that's step 1.
And there is, so as we'll talk about it, we'll just get into step 2 then. What is step 2?
Get educated. So once you figure out, all right, let's say commercial properties, that's the avenue I'm trying to go down. Read books, podcasts, YouTube videos, just consume as much content as you can. I know, like when I was starting, it was several podcasts a day, reading books, watching YouTube videos. There's so much free content out there that you can learn so much from. So it's like you just consume as much of that as possible, and that'll lead to everything else.
It's the information age. And so there's no excuse for anybody these days to not be able to get educated and get informed around, ways to build wealth in real estate. And so, and each, if you start with a broad real estate investing, or a few broad real estate investing and business books, and then you decide, hey, maybe like you were saying, maybe I want to do 2 to 4 unit small multifamily deals. And that's where, maybe that in the market that that you feel most comfortable with, maybe there's a lot of them there and you feel like you can get economies of scale and build out a portfolio of those. And they're easy, can be easier to manage. You can find books specifically on that. I read a book, I can't remember the name of it, but basically investing in duplexes, triplexes, and quads. And that guy lays out the plan for doing that and building a portfolio of that over time.
That's a specific niche. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with mobile home parks, right? If you want to get into value add, bigger multifamily deals, B and C class, there's a ton of content out there about that. Self-storage, industrial, like what we're doing, not as much information out there, but there's, like you said, I have a YouTube Premium. I walk my dog Jordy, and I'm listening to YouTube Premium all the time. I get home at night, I might watch a little bit of sports, but I'm watching, something on YouTube Premium with no ads, and where I can get some information out of the content that I'm watching. And then I would say also the next step, once I've read 50 plus books on real estate. First I read 50, maybe not 50, but 20 or so books on sales. And when I started making money, then I started figuring out that real estate was going to be a path that I was going to use to try to accumulate wealth. And then I read as much as I could about that. I was listening to Bigger Pockets probably, every day for 3 years. And there's a lot of variety there too. So it's very broad there. And then once you kind of, figure out the path and the niche that you want to be in, and you're getting more granular with your studying, and you can then join a mastermind or a coaching program. And there's a ton of them out there that you can add a lot of value. Well, I joined Jake and Gino's Wheelbarrow Profits before we ever syndicated any deal. I might have talked about that on another show, but basically, I was able to have a group of like-minded people that were going out and trying to do the same thing, buy value-add multifamily properties, and raise money to go buy bigger properties than I could afford on my own. I think a lot of people get stuck at the stage, the education stage. Like, I think the most common question I get from people that are trying to get started, they figure out the first step, right? They define, hey, I'm trying to buy a duplex. Where do I start? And it starts with getting educated, right? And this is where, if you can't find 30, 60 minutes a day when you're on your walk, you're driving to work, you're at your workout, whatever you're doing, to put it in your earpods and listen to it, I mean, then you're probably not going to do much in business in general, because you got to carve out that time. If you can just 60 minutes a day dedicate to learning, within 3 months, you'll be so much further ahead. I know when I was starting, I was working at my job, I was doing a lot of stuff that was just mindless work, like entering data. And I would have Bigger Pockets podcast just running like 8 hours a day. And those year and a half I did that, I learned so much. And we talk about compounding interest and how money and wealth can compound, but information does too. Warren Buffett he's talked about this quite a bit as well. And he spends most of his day just reading and studying. Mark Cuban talks about it. Obviously, Warren and Charlie Munger, they read a ton. So that's a common theme across successful people. And so if you're not willing to put in the time to get educated, get informed, and stay informed, this is you got to be a lifelong learner, right? Mm-hmm. Then you're just, you're not going to make it, right? It's how bad do you want it at that point? One thing too I'd bring up is the whole masterminds and coaching thing you're talking about. I think people ask, do I really need it? Can I just figure it out on my own? I think you can learn a ton for free online, right? Like books, podcasts, YouTube, learn so much. But I think really it's not 100% necessary. I invested in some courses and coaching when I was going, but it gets to a certain point where you're really trying to commit and do something. I think it just fast tracks. If you join a mastermind, if you hire a coach, you pay $1,000 for a course or whatever it is, it fast tracks your progress. You might be able to piece together a lot of that stuff online and go to different networking events and do things like that. But I think investing in those sort of things ultimately just will speed track everything by 6 months to a year. Yeah, and maybe more. You never know. I totally agree. Even if you have that DNA that hey, I'm going to go out and get this done, and I'm going to learn everything I can about it, get educated, and go out and do deals on my own. I mean, I don't think Adam's ever paid for Adam's our other partner. I don't think he's ever done a course or a mastermind, but that's him, right? But he learned through doing it, and he was able to get educated and get, informed about that. But any time that I've made an investment in my education, not necessarily college, but something like this, very specific, I've made, that's where I've gotten the best returns on any of my money, versus any other sort of investment. I agree. It's actually funny to say that. I mean, college overall, it's not to go too far that way, but it's spent 6 figures on college. I feel like literally some of the courses I paid $1,000 for, I've gotten more value than for sure 6 years of $100,000 in college. Yeah, that's a different, that's a topic for another show, I think, but it's quite a racket. So step 1, define the path. Step 2, get educated. Step 3, network and begin to build out your team. So in real estate, you've got to kind of identify the team members, whether that's a capital partner, a key partner that's going to sign on the loan with you and provide the capital, or even just lenders, brokers, attorneys, right? People that can help you, and they all have a network as well. And just also partners like you and I met, right? We met on Bigger Pockets, and being able to network and find people that have different skill sets that complement yours is another way that, if you if you want to go fast, I think the African proverb is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that holds true. So just getting out, networking, building out your team, and knowing who you're going to work with when you can get to the point of finding deals.
I think that you mentioned it quickly with that story of like how you and I got connected and started. It kind of showed just the power of networking. So I think it's been like 4 or 5 years ago, through Bigger Pockets, which is a great platform. And
we went on an ice cream date at Culver's.
Yeah, we were chatting and like, we're like, hey, let's just meet up. No agenda even, just like, hey, let's just go shoot the shit, talk about real estate. We met up. We both had the same sort of goal, right? We owned some properties, but we wanted to go bigger.
Yep.
Continued talking. Ultimately, fast forward a few months later, like, hey, let's do this together and get into business together. So that's just, goes from casual networking to what it is today. I think that can apply to everywhere, right? So it's like, for you, I guess, question for you, like if you're, someone that's trying to say, okay, go out and network. It can be a scary like word for a lot of people that aren't comfortable in going into a big crowd and telling them what they want to do. Like, where should someone start if they're trying to identify, like, okay, I want to go network and meet other real estate people. Where do I go? How do I do it?
Well, so that's a good, so for me, I don't necessarily have that problem that I think some people do. It can be an uncomfortable experience. And even, walking up to introduce yourself to anybody, for anyone, is uncomfortable, right? So first thing I would say is it just takes reps, right? Like, you got to the more you introduce yourself and your goals and your ideas and how you're able to help other people, the easier it gets. And then it just becomes, like second nature. So that's one. You got to kind of push through the fire in networking to make it so that it's like effortless.
I would say I'm on the other end. I was scared as hell. Like the first networking event I went to was this local event in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where I'm from. And I remember I'd listened to some podcasts, read a few books, like had this grand idea, wanted to go out and buy a duplex. And I roll into this networking event, and it's like 10 people, and everyone there has already done 5 deals. They're talking about what they're making on this flip they're doing. And I'm just sitting there like, I've never done a deal. I was scared to ask questions. So, but like you said, I kept going to that event every week. And after a few months, it's like people are accepting of, you can go to these events and talk to someone that owns 100 units.
Yeah.
Generally, 99% of the time, that person's going to talk to you and give you advice.
Exactly.
You just got to let them know where you're at. This is where I'm at. And this is what my goal is. And you just keep doing it.
And how you can maybe help them. What you might be able to offer to help somebody else, right? I think that's a key point about networking. It's not about you, really. It's in networking, it's more, I've always looked at it like, how can I help you? What are you trying to do? How can I help you? And then it naturally flows to, here's what I'm looking to do. And maybe someone that can help me or that I should get in touch with. Yeah. And, so I think, if someone's very, uncomfortable and scared, you just got to kind of boss up and go forward. And look at you, right? You're now you're posting on Instagram and social media and everything. That stuff's uncomfortable. I went into a gym today for the first time I did a workout class, 6:15 a.m. It was great. I didn't know anyone, right? So those are uncomfortable experiences, but the more that you do it, it becomes somewhat effortless.
I agree. And so like someone that's saying, okay, yeah, I want to go find the networking event. What's the best way to find those networking events?
Well, we all have Google, right? So you can go on Google and just type in, real estate networking Milwaukee, right? Bigger Pockets is a great resource. Meetup.com. I've got a subscription to Meetup.com, and I have different, locations and topics in there that if I see Meetup, you get an email, I think on a weekly basis, at least I have it set up for, that I see events and I think, oh, that could be interesting for me. Mm-hmm. And one thing I would do to push yourself is to almost, track it. Like how many networking events do I want to go to on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, right? And then hold yourself accountable to it. Things are going to come up. You're not going to want to go. You're going to be busy with life. And then just the natural, uncomfortability of networking in general, especially when it's forced, like speed dating or something, that's uncomfortable. So, but if you track it and you're just consistently getting out there, then, you're able to, you start to stack up wins.
Yeah. And I think like no matter pretty much where anyone lives, right? Unless you're like in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, there's local real estate networking events. You might have to drive 20 minutes, but there's always going to be some. And there's also a lot of virtual events. I
For
think
sure.
you could go online and find a million different virtual events that are happening every week. But I would bring up the question too, like, what do you think? I think a lot of people get caught in just going to virtual events because you avoid that uncomfortable situation because you can just be on Zoom and like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But do you think like a virtual networking event versus an in-person networking event, do you think you get more benefits?
I think you get more benefits in person no matter what. And that's whether you're on a sales call or you have a meeting with somebody, or you like, if anytime you can be in person, you can build a connection so much easier and quicker, right? Like, if I'm on a Zoom call, there's a good chance I might be multitasking, right? I'm looking at something else. I've got a lot going on. If there's a topic that's super relevant, it's like sort of a virtual networking. I don't think it's not all bad, but I don't think it's as powerful as in person, meeting someone, looking them in their eyes, shaking their hand, and asking them, how can I help you? What are you working on? And getting to learn more about them. And then in turn, you'll be able to share more about what you're looking for and what they might be able to help you with.
Yep. No, I agree. Yeah. So it's go online, find a local event, sign up, and just show up, and just let people know what you're trying to do
and how you can help them, and then hold yourself accountable to doing more and more of these. And that's something that I should continue to do more of. And then here's another tip that I just, this off the cuff here is, you can start your own networking event. We started the Wisconsin Apartment Investors, and we started doing these. We'd have 50 people show up to these events. Once you start and you have these events, we're planning a bigger event this year. We did a big one last year. Each time, with we did a monthly meetup, and then I did a lunch and learn thing for a while too, where I would, we'd get 20, 30 people showing up. Sometimes, it might be a little bit of a lighter month, but the key point that I'm trying to make here is if you are the one orchestrating the event or one of the people orchestrating the event, you automatically have some authority. People come up to you. It's a great way to meet investors. It's a great way to, meet all these other partners. So if you can't find a networking event that is interesting to you, or, you can go to your local RIA, and, some of these networking events, I'd been to a ton of them, and I just didn't find a whole lot of value in some of them, right? And that's okay, right? You gotta like kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince, I think they say. But you get a lot of reps that way. But then if you think there's a niche that's interesting to you, that would be interesting to other people, you can just go on meetup.com. You got to figure out the location and the space and figure out a way to make it unique and relevant to other people. And then, it becomes really easy to network when you're the one putting the thing on.
Yeah. I think looking back at it, when you and I started that, and our third partner was helping with it too, but we didn't have a ton of experience. So we kind of just started hosting these events, and looking back on it, that was really the launch to our business.
For sure.
Like we found our first investors there.
Yep.
Found some deals from there. I mean, it really kickstarted. You'd bring in speakers that had all this experience. That's instant rapport because you're giving them a platform.
Exactly.
So I think that fast tracked everything. So I agree. I mean, especially if you're searching around your local market and you see there's not any networking events, it's even more of a reason to do it.
Even more of a reason to do it, and then figure out ways to make it great, make it something that people are going to enjoy going to, make it fun. Make it something that. Make it more comfortable for people to be able to introduce themselves and what they're looking for, and in a
fun setting. I mean,
yeah.
We even like, I remember we'd pay for drinks, we'd get pizza, we'd have the venue. We didn't charge for any of it, so like it wasn't a ton of money, but it'd be a couple $100 every event we would do.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like, I remember a lot of people would ask like, oh, why are you guys paying for that? Like not charging for this, or why are you a sponsor? It was just, we saw the value of like a couple $100 a month to throw this event and bring everyone together. All it has to take is one investor or one new relationship or one new deal.
And then you kind of become the authority figure. People were coming up to us and asking us questions about our business. If you're the one putting it on, you really get a platform to make networking super easy for you.
Well, then also, like you said, I mean, it's like if you go to the event as an attendee, right? You're usually the one kind of searching out, trying to find people to talk to.
Yeah.
If you're the one hosting the event, like you have a line of people that want to talk to you.
They're coming to talk to you.
Speaker, which is great. So I think either way, host your event, attend events, but just get out there and network.
100%. We got on a tangent there, but that's okay because that's important.
That was a good one.
I can't decide which one of these steps is the most important. They're all critical.
It's hard to say. Yeah.
But what's the next step?
Deal flow, finding deals. So after we've defined the path, got educated, went out and networked. Now it's time to find the deals. And I mean, this is a super relevant topic. This might be, to me, actually the most important one right now, especially because it's so hard to find deals.
Yeah.
But this is when you're actually finding deals.
Yeah, I would say at this point you've already got your buy box identified. Like, this is when I find this deal and it checks these boxes. We're pulling the trigger and we're getting something done. So you can go and then start to generate deal flow. You go to the broker community. You go to basically you take kind of that networking approach and put it into overdrive in a systematic format to reach out to brokers, to reach out to sellers, to reach out to, even accountants, lenders, right? You can find deals from those channels as well, and just tell them what you're looking for. This is the deal I'm looking for. If it meets these parameters, I'm a buyer. And basically, you're building rapport and you're looking at everything from a long-term relationship perspective. Like, if you want to get into the real estate business, this is not a business to get in and get out of in a year or 2 or 3. Like, this is something that I'm going to do the rest of my life. Hopefully I'll be doing deals when I'm 80, and, if you're building a long-term relationship with these people, you're not expecting them to have something for you right away, but you're trying to convince them that, hey, you're going to be easy to do business with. You're going to be a closer if the deal meets that parameter, and you're going to be in this thing for the long haul.
I think so. Let's kind of go a little bit deeper on this one. So to me, there's really 2 ways you find deals. One is through brokers. One is direct to seller. So let's talk about like some strategies. Let's start with broker. If you're building a relationship with a broker, so many people will just find that broker online, send them an email or give them a call. Hey, I'm looking for a 5 unit in this area. Great. The broker says, awesome. The broker adds you to their email list that has 1,000 other people on it. And that person hangs up the phone thinking their job is done. I'm just going to sit back and wait for that deal to come.
Yeah, no way.
That's not how it works. That's a good start. You got to have that initial call to get on the broker's radar, but you need to nurture that relationship. You need to meet with them in person. You need to stay in touch with them once a month.
Yeah.
You need to really build that relationship, because since I've been in real estate, right, it's always been more of a seller's market. So if that broker has 500 people calling them asked to buy and 2 people calling them asking to sell. So you need to work your way up to the top of that list. So when the broker gets that call from the seller saying, hey, yeah, I'd sell, he's calling you, she's calling you first.
Yeah. And
you're not getting the email blast, because then you have a better chance of getting that deal.
Yeah. So the way to do that, I think, is to build rapport with them, like we were saying. Let them know that you're a closer, and let them know that, so handle any objections or reservations that they might have about you, even if you're new, right? And then, basically, you've got to get them to like you. People do business with people that they like. So you've got to get them to like you enough to basically send the good deals your way first.
Yeah.
That's key.
So if you're calling that broker, right, I think at the end of the day, there's some great brokers. We work with a lot of great brokers. At the end of the day, the most important thing for the broker is this person going to close because I want my commission? To be honest, like, brokers really don't care if you're going to make money after they sell you the deal. They really don't care what happens on
the
day
good
2.
ones do, and you partner with them.
They do,
and
but
do a lot of repeat deals.
High level, the most important thing to them is the commission.
Yeah.
So when you're calling them, asking them to send you a deal, and then they had the question you're going to get most often, especially when you're starting, is where are you getting your funding from?
Yeah.
How are you going to close on this deal?
Yeah.
So for someone that maybe doesn't have all the funding lined up, they're going to bring in partners and maybe raise some money. How do you answer that question when the broker asks that?
I mean, you've got to, that's why you really have to take the education part serious, because you need to know this stuff cold. You need to be able to talk their lingo, their language, and you need to be able to project confidence. You need to be able to pick up the phone and call that guy and have him be like, well, shit, he hasn't bought a deal yet, but he seems like he really knows what he's talking about. And, so if you don't have the capital lined up yet, I would argue, if you don't have any sort of capital partnerships in mind or anything like that, you probably got to go back to the networking phase and figure out, before you start banging the phone and calling all these brokers or going direct to sellers, you've probably got to figure out, hey, if I get a deal, back in when you're in step 3, if I get a deal, would you be interested in partnering on something like this? And here's sort of the structure that I'm looking at. And if you get enough of those, then you can go to the broker and just say, hey, yeah, I've got investors.
Yeah.
And
I think this was a mistake I think I made early on when I was starting, is I was doing step 2, 3, and 4 all at the same time. I was doing the education, the networking, and I started calling brokers too soon.
Yeah.
Because I remember I got a list of 15 brokers that were doing multifamily deals in southeastern Wisconsin. And I just started calling them, hey, I'm looking for a deal in this sort of buy box. And they were asking questions I just didn't know the answer to. They, like you said, they would say a term, right? Like a cap rate or something.
Yeah.
I just fully didn't understand what it meant.
Yeah.
Probably said a dumb answer, or they asked, where's the capital coming from? And my response was like, oh, I don't really know. Like kind of figuring it out. The broker's just going to discount that, right? Like they might, put you on their list, but they're not necessarily going to take you seriously. So that's why we say in this order, right? Get educated, learn the basics, understand what the terms mean. So when the broker asks you that, you know how to respond, you know what they're talking about. Network, have your connections in place. So when you're calling that broker, you don't have to have 100% everything in line, but you have to be a good part of the way. So when you call that broker, you're confident and you have everything in place, so you can tell them, hey, I'm going to close and this is how I'm going to do it.
And you can write out like, if I have an important call, I typically write out like a script, or I have in my Apple Notes. So if I'm sitting in front of my computer, I can literally look at it. And then when I have these bullet points down, I know I can hit on them, and I know I can project confidence because I have that right in front of me. Or if I'm driving, I can pull it up or pull over and see it on my notes app on my phone. So you kind of want to have like a script of, how you're going to open the call and where you're going to take it. And then, remember that it's all kind of about, them and how they get paid, right? So it's projecting confidence. And I mean, there's many times over the years that I would literally talk to myself in the mirror as if I'm like having a conversation. I still do it sometimes. And I talk to myself all the time. I talk a lot, but if you're in the shower, you're on a run, you're thinking about stuff, you want to go through these conversations in your mind first, because then it's just going to roll off your tongue. You might want to say it to your buddy, you might want to like whoever, talk to your dad about it. And then just, if you do the right, like systematic approach to what we're talking about, and you really truly get educated and you can teach it to other people, then you're going to be able to speak the language and you're going to be able to portray yourself as a confident buyer.
Yeah. So brokers, the other one was direct to seller. This one to me is more of a grind for sure.
Oh yeah.
You're going to go out, buy a data list generally, or compile your data list on your own. You're going to cold call them, you're going to send them letters. It's a lot more hours, but if you can connect direct to seller, generally you're able to cut out the broker commission, so you're able to work out a little bit better of a deal. Sometimes you can find someone in distress that might not necessarily know what their property's worth. This one takes a lot more time, and I know we're actually like rebuilding kind of our systems for calling off market properties. We've done it in the past. Haven't had as much success with this compared to brokers. I think for us, brokers is the best avenue. But I would say, I think it also depends on what property you're trying to buy.
Exactly. It's what, if you're trying to go buy a commercial property, I mean, a broker is worth their weight in gold. We have an off-market deal flow. We call it the deal machine that we're actually building out right now, so that we can get ahead of some stuff. And I just look at that as one avenue, right? Where I still think most of our deals are going to come through brokers that we have relationships with, or some that we maybe haven't even met yet. But if we have that, we're actively out looking for deals, right? We're trying to get those conversations started. And then what the brokers bring us, if we can nurture those relationships and get into their top 5 or top 3 list of buyers for that type of product, that's just going to be kind of, the cherries on top. And so you're expending energy and resources to try to find deals in whatever way you can. And you have to have a systematic approach for that too. I think brokers are worth their weight in gold. If you're buying, single family houses, or if you're doing, obviously wholesaling, you're cutting out the broker that way. But if you're doing smaller, like residential deals, you could really lean more on a off-market direct to seller campaign, as sending mailers, cold calling, and following up on that stuff. That's a big channel that a lot of people use in the smaller, single family game, and smaller, small multifamily 2 to 4 unit thing. But as you get up into bigger commercial properties, you really want to lean on the broker's experience. I mean, and a lot of people try to, will try to cut down a broker's commission a little bit. That's never a good move, really. They're worth every penny if they can help you get the right deal and help you think about it the right way.
I agree. And I think to close this step out, I would say you also have to expect to look at and underwrite a lot of deals. A lot of people think like coming in, like they're going to do this work and the first deal I see is going to be amazing. Maybe you get lucky. But realistically right now, I mean, you got to look at 100 deals to find one, to buy one. So maybe more. So I think it's a practice I would say that I've gotten used to is when a broker sends you a deal too and you see it and maybe you don't like the deal for one reason or another. It's not the right location, numbers don't work, whatever it is, always respond back to that, underwrite the deal, do the analysis, but always respond back to that broker and let them know why the deal doesn't work and remind them of what kind of deal you're looking for.
Exactly.
You just as much touch points as you can get with brokers, the more they're going to remember you and the more they're going to remember what you're trying to buy.
Yep.
So when they get a seller that matches what you're trying to buy, they're calling you first instead of hitting their big email list.
Exactly. And you're staying top of mind with them and you're, consistent communication. I would say back even to the underwriting a lot of deals and you, because every deal is a little bit different, right? And they're not just numbers on a page. There's a quantitative aspect and a qualitative aspect. So you can take a look at each deal, go through the exercise of underwriting it, and actually really putting yourself in the mindset of like, if I was to buy this is what I would like about it, right? And then summarize what you did or didn't like, and put those as bullet points to the broker on, but here's what I'm looking for. I didn't like this, and this. It's not a deal for me. Thanks so much for sending it. But, if you have anything that meets this criteria, please think of me first.
Yep. I agree. All right. So step 5, close the deal.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Close the deal. The fun part.
That's right. That is, yeah, they're all fun, but this is where, you get real there's real excitement around that. Once you get a deal under contract, you're going to go through due diligence then. And you're really looking for any skeletons in the closet, anything that could kind of kill the deal, which would be a major thing. You don't ever want to in my opinion, you don't want to retrade on anything, like renegotiate the deal on anything that's like minor. Don't what's the saying? Don't step over dollars to pick up pennies. So anything minor, that's okay. You can make a note of it, and maybe that adjusts your business plan a little bit once you close the deal. But in due diligence, you're looking for any just major deal breakers.
I would agree. Yeah, I don't think you see people that will go back and retrade someone for $5,000, and it's like, unless it's a really small deal, maybe it makes a difference. But on a larger deal, it doesn't make a difference. But things like this happened to us, right? Like we got a deal in contract, moved forward. Seller was being pretty vague about the roof. We get up on this roof. It was a couple $100,000 square foot industrial building.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the roof was over $1 million was the quote to replace the roof. That item we can't just swallow and say, yeah, we're not going to retrade. We had to go back to the table, and ultimately they didn't want to concede, so we had to bail on the deal. But as you go through due diligence, right, there's a lot of different steps, and we don't have to go through. Maybe that's a topic for a different episode, but you want to check all the boxes, make sure you're looking at everything, hire a good inspector. Learn that lesson too.
Learned them all. Not them all. We've learned a lot though. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, that's, you're going through the steps, putting the money together. There's a lot that falls into that bucket, but ultimately that's the process of getting the deal to the closing table.
And so when you're going through due diligence, you're also lining up funds. So if you're using your money, that's great. But you still probably have to prepare your personal financial statement for the bank, or if you're buying in cash, then it's less of a worry at that point. But a lot of times, you're looking for an investor partner. You're going back to those people that you've networked with, that you've met, and hopefully you've continued to nurture those relationships and say, hey, I got a live one on the hook, guys. Like, it's time. You said you'd be interested in partnering on something like this. What do you think? And you got to put together an equity deck, right? That would show, like, here's the current property, here's how it's performing today, here's what we have it under contract for, and here's the business plan, and here's how we're gonna add value to the property by executing this business plan.
And I would say another thing here is bank financing. It's a really timely topic right now. I think in the past few years, like, bank financing was so easy to get. There's so many banks competing over getting the debt on a property that it was almost overlooked. Like, you just forward over deal info, and like the bank's gonna be jumping all over it. Right now, it's hard to get financing, right? There's a lot of turmoil in the banks right now. So at the end of the day, the bank's the biggest partner in your deal, generally.
For sure.
Right? Like they're financing 75% of the deal. They're your biggest partner. So you have to look at them as an investor and ultimately put together a good pitch to sell the bank on investing in the deal, because that's what they're doing, is they're investing in the deal.
Yep.
So I would say right now, right, like put together a great PowerPoint, right, a great pitch, send that to the bank, come across professional instead of, you see a lot of times people are just forwarding an email over to the bank. Like, this is the deal. If you have any questions. And now the bank, I just had a conversation like this with a banker the other day. He was like, working with someone and they sent me, 50 different documents, 20 different emails, and I'm sitting here grinding, trying to put everything together. And that's just a bad way to start the deal. Whereas if you just send them over a nice clean PDF, here's all the information you need. Let me know if you have any questions.
I always think about it like, be a professional, like in whatever you do and however whatever you're doing, like you show up as a professional. Look, be easy to do business with, but look like you know your shit and what's going on. Even if you don't really, it takes a little bit more effort to do that legwork, but you're going to look, especially in the real estate world, there's a lot of people that, maybe aren't necessarily that professional, right? Just like the guy that you were just talking about, emailing 50 things over or whatever. Like, I wouldn't want to sift through that shit. So if you can make it easy for them, here's who I am, here's the team, here's the deal, here's how I'm going to add a shit ton of value to the property, and it's going to be a good deal for you, and it's going to be a good deal for us, and portray confidence.
100%. That's key right now. Very key.
And you kind of have to coordinate the whole transaction. Now there's transaction coordinators with the banks, with the title companies. So you're going to get help with, once you get it to this point and you can line up the funds and sell the bank on you, right? Like then at that point, you have them sort of coordinate the whole transaction for you, but you still have to keep your finger on the pulse of all the different things going on, the inspection, the appraisal, the capital, the equity capital, the debt capital.
There's a lot of administrative stuff that happens throughout closing, but that's a good point. I think when you're going through the closing process, at the end of the day, like time kills deals. So if there's an email from the bank, there's an email from the inspector, a call, right? You want to respond to that as quick as possible. You don't want to let that sit for a few days, because then that sits for another few days and ultimately compounds and potentially kill the deal. So that's number one priority when you're looking at this, like especially financing. Get back to them quickly. Make sure you're responding quickly, because that snowballs. Responsiveness
is key in business in general, right? But certainly once you have a deal, like that's even before you have a deal on the line. Like you were talking about getting back to brokers, right? Like the faster that you can get back to people, like speed kills. You can separate yourself that way. But certainly when you have a deal under contract and you're moving towards the closing table, there's a lot of deadlines, a lot of contingencies in place, right? So like the faster that you can be buttoned up and professional and get back to people, the better your deal's gonna go. The smoother that closing process is gonna go.
Yep. And you have your closing dinner and deal's closed. So what's the final?
You go to the closing dinner, you have a great time. That's awesome. And then you ask for another deal from the broker and the lender and whoever else might know it. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. Maybe you're not looking for another deal right away. The sixth step is to execute the business plan. That's really when the rubber meets the road and the deal actually starts. Because you can go buy something and just kind of, let it sit on autopilot and those deals can go to shit. So you really have to, when you're putting together your business plan and your strategy, you've got to be thinking about, once this deal closes, how can I, quickly execute this strategy and this business plan and start, basically finding ways to whether it's a rehab, whether it's rebranding, you're finding ways that you're going to be able to get a higher amount of rent and increase the net operating income of the property and thus the value of the whole property.
I agree. And I think I might have said before, deal flow is most important. This one might be more important, or if not a close second. Everything else leading up to it, it's exciting to close the deal, post about it, do all that stuff. But the money is made in executing your business plan.
For sure.
If you're saying you're going to do these 5 things to add value to the property, and then you close the deal and kind of just hope everything goes to plan, you're a property manager, and I told them what we need to do, they'll take care of it. That's generally not going to work. You have to be on top of them. You have to be monitoring the numbers, weekly reporting. We do weekly key performance indicator calls. We have reports that come to us every day, constantly tracking the numbers, making sure we're on target. to hit our business plan, because that's what you're going to do with this property on the front end, is create that business plan. Now it's time to execute it.
You being the deal guy and being the sponsor, you have to have full accountability, right? Like because everybody has their own priorities and their own, agenda for things that they're going to do. And if you don't stay on people, even in your own company or in, it's just, or their vendors or whatever, right? Like if you don't stay on people consistently, that's why I'm such a big fan of like weekly cadences, right? We look at leasing, we look at CapEx forecasting, we look at like our goals and how we are stacking up against what our goals were for the quarter, for the year, things like that. It helps if you just have a set meeting on the calendar and you're going to bang through that, on a weekly basis, and then you can follow up with people. It's like, it's an easy reminder. You can't just wing it. I mean, you can, but.
Well, so that brings up a good point. So I think see this a lot, right? Where people assume if you're using a property manager, let's use that scenario, right? Someone's going to use a third-party property management company, and so many people just assume by hiring that property manager, you're good. You just sit back and watch the money hit your bank account.
Yeah.
What do you think you have to do to actually do that right?
Well, that gets into the difference between property management and asset management. As the asset manager, or the deal sponsor, right? You're responsible for the overall performance of that. The property manager, they can help you, and there's great property management companies, and then there's some that aren't very good at all. But they're not concerned with the financial performance of that asset. They're concerned with, getting leasing commissions. They're concerned with, doing unit turns and basically getting their sort of cut of the pie. But it's not, and so you're looking at both the income and the expenses. A lot of times they're concerned with the income because they're paid that fee based on the rental property income, right?
Yeah.
And they're less concerned about the expenses.
And just to be clear, like I'm an advocate for using a property manager. We use property management on all of our stuff, but
we have a great property management company that we're vertically integrated with,
which is great. But I think, like you said, at the end of the day, the property manager, they're gonna collect the rent. They're gonna field the call on the weekend when the plumbing breaks. They're gonna go in and coordinate things. But at the end of the day, they're not looking at it as a macro view of like what's this property worth? How am I adding value to the property? What's the strategic exit timeline?
Exactly.
Those sort of things that you need to be above them, right? And kind of overseeing everything, hitting them up when you need to ask questions about certain things, or if a certain expense came up. If you're just sitting on the sidelines and you check it once a month, you're going to miss a lot of things.
For sure. Thank you for tuning in to episode 4, What You Need to Know to Do Your First Deal. Some of the key takeaways were defining your path, getting educated, and holding yourself accountable 30, 60 minutes a day to studying and learning and continuously learning throughout your entire career, but certainly when you're getting started. And then networking, understanding the incentives and the interests of the people that you're looking to work with and build out your team will help you align those interests and help you get to the point where you're getting deal flow and you're getting reps at underwriting deals and learning what actually is going to be a good deal, so that when you do see that deal, you can get to the closing table, you get through due diligence, and get to the final part, which is executing the business plan and your strategy to add value and generate wealth. Thanks again for tuning in. This is episode 4. We are excited to be here with you, and can't wait to see you next time. Like, subscribe, smash the like button, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.